Hi there, my name is Simon Moffat, founder and research analyst at the Cyber Hut. And in this video, I'm going to be doing a demo walkthrough with Nia from P0 Security. Nia, hi there, how are you doing?
I'm good. Uh,
Um, great to be chatting again. I always get the easy job. I just sit here and ask the questions. But so Nia, you run the product side of things at P0 and looking at the modern privileged access management space and trying to get more systems adopted within the privileged access remit. We know PAM has been around for 20, 25 years, often on premises, often very siloed in its deployment, maybe only integrating with a handful of high risk systems. Often quite fragile, in my opinion, very sort of linear and focused only on some of the sort of big building blocks of that world. But obviously, I guess in PAM now we have more systems we need to integrate. We have it could be cloud service provider, SaaS. We've still got on-prem stuff to do as well, and then we have service accounts, NHI workloads, a whole host of, I guess, more systems, more identities. And the one thing I guess we want to sort of focus on in this video is the whole concept of both zero standing privileges, but that just in time access. I think historically many organizations have really struggled with they assign credentials or permissions to service accounts of people and they never get removed, which is a terrible security practice ultimately. But I think it was difficult to do so, wasn't it? Difficult to sort of add and remove access at runtime in that manner. But to me, it seems like just in time is now possible with the likes of yourselves. You built out a mechanism to do it. So are we now within touching distance of just in time for everything?
Absolutely. I think, Simon, you hit on a few really important points to talk about. I think with cloud, fundamentally, the footprint of what's defined as privileged has massively changed. There's uh, I believe, at least from a data perspective, this privileged data that exists in multiple different forms across your cloud environment. So it's not as simple as, hey, I have an on-prem server, I'm going to throw it behind a vault, or here are a few servers, I throw it behind a bastion, and I'm good to go, and I've secured my privileged assets, quote unquote. In the cloud environment, again, given the proliferation of what privileged data is and where it exists is fairly broad. And I think in this environment, it's not only important to think about, like, it's important to think about zero standing privileges, but it happens in multiple different forms. It's not only in the form of just in time access, but it's also thinking about just enough privileges to ensure the way you're asking for access and the way access is granted to you is still granular and scoped to exactly the data that you need, as opposed to broader access across the system. Because again, if you're really trying to secure your privileged data, you really have to think about not only that just in time access piece, but also just enough privileges to what you want access for. So that's how, at least, we think about uh, privileged access management, at least in these modern environments, is basically giving customers and folks the capability of requesting that granular level, sort of component level control, if you will, just in time, as and when needed, and doing it in a way that's not tedious and laborious. It's not it's embedded into the developer workflow, so it's just easy to request and access. So that way, PAM tools typically were seen as huge roadblocks. Oh my god, I have to check out credentials and you have to do a bunch of different things. But no, and that causes a lot of friction, and from a adoption point of view, also introduces major roadblocks. So we want to make sure that we can provide those just in time, just enough privileges to achieve zero standing privileges in a way that will be used by developers, because it's embedded into developer native workflows.
It's really interesting things there. It's, I guess, while you're sort of setting up your demo there, the one thing I want to sort of bring up is it is that mean time to access, isn't it? It's removing you mentioned friction there, which I think is a really, really nice word. It is removing the friction and the barriers, I guess, legacy PAM. It was seen as a barrier. It's the firewall to this SSH server or firewall to an administrative box or whatever it is. And now it's like, well, actually, because we have so many systems and different stakeholders accessing those systems. You know, I mentioned the developer sort of stakeholder there. That's relatively new, really, in that concept of accessing high risk data, high risk systems, and stuff in there. So I think there's some interesting stuff around making that simpler, but you have more stuff to protect, and you've got to, as you say, have it scoped. So very fine grained, scoped permissions, which I think is vitally important. So, how easy is this? Is it a difficult thing to see in demo? Is it complicated? What's the stuff you guys have been working on at P0?
It's really, really easy. And here is where I was talking about taking away the friction. So as we think about just-in-time access and just-in-time workflows, we want to ensure that these capabilities are available in a way that's easily accessible to developers and meets them where they are. So whether it's, your Slack bot, whether it's your CLI, you should have those capabilities of requesting access as and when needed. So let me, walk you through a quick demo of how easy it is to request access with P0 security. So here I am just running a simple command. What I want to do is essentially get access to. There's multiple things P0 supports out of the box, but for the purposes of this demo, let's talk about how do you sort of get a request for granular access within AWS, and multiple things again supported here, but I was talking about just enough privileges in just in time. So let's talk about, like, hey, I don't want broader policy level privileges within AWS, but I want to request access for a specific resource within AWS. I can do that with P0 as well. A lot of this stuff is configurable, so you can only ensure that this screen to a developer is showing things that they can request for, and we can do the plumbing in the background. We can define those orchestration policies just so that we can customize this model for every single sort of developer user within an organization. So you pick a specific account, and then we can go down to basically the level of specifying, let's say, an S3 bucket. I don't want access to the entire sort of system, but I just want access to a specific S3 bucket. I can even go further granular here in the spirit of just enough privileges of requesting a specific file or folder within the S3 buckets. And then I can attach a bunch of different policies to it. So let's say I just want to read this S3 bucket. I can say that I have the capability of, let's say, extending these policies because maybe I want to view what other buckets exist within the environment. I specify a reason why I need this access, and I can specify the time duration I need this access for, and I can request it. Now, as the access request is submitted, now for the purposes of this demo, I've again tuned this that I can allow for self approval, but this can be routed in multiple different ways where you can add multiple humans in the loop, where you want to have sort of a chain command from an approval perspective, or you can tie this to your other IT tools, like you may have PagerDuty, Incident.io, or other sort of tools that you use for escalation, especially when you're facing a production outage. You could definitely sort of plug that in as well. These requests can get routed in that process, or sorry, access can be granted as and when developers require it or users require it within an environment. So let's say I approve this request. Again, fairly simple workflow here. I can override the time that an access request was requested for. Here you see that access was granted. Now if I quickly switch into my AWS portal and I refresh, and here you can see a new role was created for me. If I use this role to log into my actual account and look at S3, you will now see that I have access to this bucket, and I'm actually able to see the data that resides in this S3 bucket. Now, similarly, if I go back and look at any other S3 bucket, it just tells me that I have insufficient permissions to do that. So what I did essentially was I requested for just in time and just enough privileges to access the customer one bucket. Again, with Slack, it was very easy for me to do that, but this can be done via the web portal that we have, or any other sort of ticketing tools you may have. You can plug that in, but you can request that access, and that request access is granted, and you land in the basically you're landing, you get that access provision just in time. And once relinquished, or once the access time is over, that would expire, and again, you would have no privileges anymore. So uh,
Fantastic.
just kind of demoing that, you can request that access, it's granted, that just enough privileges are granted just in time, and you can do this across multiple different resources that may exist across your cloud environments.
So that's really interesting things. I think there's, we talk about the sort of approval thing. Do you think we're ever going to get, or will the business ever get comfortable with not having human in the loop, in the sense of more autonomous approval based on, I don't know, maybe I always request access to the S3 bucket. So you think, oh, well, we're just going to auto approve it almost, or have some sort of agent approving it. Are we getting close to that yet? Or think we still need to have a person just to tick things off?
No, absolutely. I mean, even today, we have multiple customers that do have policies, kind of depends on what resource, right, that you are trying to protect behind just-in-time controls. You can definitely configure policies to be automated. And like I was saying, it can also be tied to incidents. So if you're really having a production outage, you ideally do not want to wait for a human in the loop to sort of approve access, because you're making changes quickly. So all of that is already possible, but as we look at like agentic applications, I think it definitely becomes a lot more pressing. And again, I think it requires a lot more sort of comprehensive demo, but we can definitely walk through what agentic capabilities P0 has and how our authorization control plane extends to help secure agentic applications.
Fabulous. And one other little final question here. You mentioned obviously being time based, so like saying whatever, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or a day, or whatever, to have the access. Can that be then added or wrapped around a task? So, for example, say I'm working on a Jira ticket or a ServiceNow ticket, I only get access while my ticket or the context is active. Is that a common thing?
Yes, so we can extend that out, as I was saying, that the ticketing workflows can be integrated with the policies themselves. So the person resolving the ticket has that access while they're working on a specific ticket. And all of that is configurable easily within the policy framework that P0 provides.
Fantastic. Again, it's using that context, isn't it? The end user context or the business context to make those decisions more automative or more risk focused. I think for me, I think in the past, it's always been very coarse grained and static and not really focused on the risk or the business or what the end user is really trying to achieve there. So that's much more, I think, much more flexible than it ever used to be. So yeah, thank you for taking time. The demo gods works. It's always good. It's always good to have demos that work. I think the whole aspect of just in time is, I think, it's something which has been talked about for a long time. I think
Yep.
it's really, really great to see, a vendor and a solution being able to do it so easily. I think, across, as you say, CSPs, multiple apps, but then within there, multiple levels of granularity based on the resource and then based on the permissions in the resource, which I think is really powerful. And you mentioning just in time permissions, but also that scoping as well. I think it's important having it really fine grained. So Nia from P0, thank you for taking a little bit of time out. I think it's an area which I think is become really, really important as we have more systems, more identities in different ways of accessing those identities. So thank you for taking a little bit of time out to demo some of P0's solutions. Thank you to our audience for watching, and I will see you next time.
Absolutely. Thank you.